My journey in education is actually short-lived directly, but I'd like to think I was moving towards this my whole life. I attended a program a few years ago where somebody very wise taught us that, when you do have these opportunities, talk about the story of self, talk about the story of us, and the story of now. So the story of self is, I think a lot of us are in education because of somewhat similar reasons. My theory is that we spend most of our lives trying to come up to our parents' expectations of us. I actually think we're trying to make them happy even when they're not there. So my father was a labor union organizer. He was the one who published their magazine. He would have study circles in our house. I would serve tea to countless people. And my mother was the founder and volunteer for one school nonprofit in Karachi. And when I was growing up, she would be going around door to door collecting money for her school. No amount of terrestrial intelligence could have forecasted that I would be doing the same at a different stage of my life. But that was the first reason I think that I was always gravitating towards education, because I saw my parents, and I think a lot of us might identify with this, seeing a parent who's a teacher, seeing an elder that we respect, or a teacher really make an impact. The second reason really was that people that I knew, but also people that had no personal connection to me, actually invested in me being here. Because of my parents' life choices, which I've just explained, I had to really rely on scholarships for every stage of my academic journey. And I was always amazed at what can I do to acknowledge that contribution in my journey. I didn't even know them. I didn't know how I could thank them. So when I saw myself as a professional, I would always imagine myself doing something like this. But I was a banker for 17 years. And people ask me how that switch happened. The switch it took 17 years to make. Actually, the switch was supposed to happen 17 years ago. What inspired me? Well, if you're a banker, it doesn't. The bar is really low for inspiration. It doesn't take a lot to inspire you. But I think all of us, right? I mean, we are inspired every day because, frankly, this is the big privilege of what the work we do. We are marinating in this purpose-driven sort of ecosystem where every parent who invests in their child is, dealing with back-breaking labor every day, trying to figure out how to have this child have a better life than their own. And you can see their struggle and their hope, and you hope that what you're doing and what you're trying to make happen does come up to that kind of incredible sort of, dream that the parents are carrying. You're inspired by teachers who are almost turning up every day as if they were on a holy mission, right? They are fired by, and you feel beholden to them that, you need to serve them as a leader and make sure that they have a good chance of making change happen. We are inspired by volunteers and supporters who somehow take your cause to be their own and give up a lot in their lives. We work with people who came into this very early and make career choices, which were tough. But most of all, I think I'm inspired by the children themselves. Their grit, their resilience, their fighting against the odds. When I look at them, I sometimes try and, share my wisdom and tell them, you must keep on working hard. And the look in their eyes when they look back at me is like, are you kidding me? Like, how do you think I got here this far without hard work or without dreaming big? So there is a lot inspiring us. I just want to leave with two thoughts. One is that this space, the work that all of you do, we do, we are really trying to be to play a role in this ecosystem, which is for much more stronger, much more robust people than us. We are really fighting. We're charging at windmills here, and so it is really important that we make our work count, and that we survive while we're doing it. It is important for this child, I think, for us to think of life outcomes, for learning as a means for a better life. I think this is important because we sometimes lose ourselves. Of course, it is very important to measure what we do. What gets measured gets done. But sometimes I feel that in that space, we forget that learning outcomes are for life outcomes. And we sometimes try and get, as parents and educators, we try and use our kids to get better test scores rather than use test scores to make our kids great. And I think as a room, we need to reflect on what we've done when we have talked ourselves out of the larger narratives on social and economic development by just very, very and exclusively focusing on learning outcomes. I think society is waiting for us to tell them what a big role we play in social and economic well-being. The last piece I just want to share is this community is really dear to me. This morning is very special to me as I reconnected with people. With all of what is going on in the world, money being pulled away, back-breaking kind of shocks coming at you, it's really important to connect with each other. And I would encourage you to look at models, one of them being TCF, but many others, where community building, building a community of support has enabled organizations to survive despite some of these shocks. We need each other. We are doing really hard work. But I want to tell you that there is a lot of money out there chasing good implementation. And good implementation, as far as I'm concerned, is not just technically good implementation, but really well-intentioned as well. So I look out at this room and thank you for your intentions. Thank you for your effort. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Zia.
Good morning. Wow. I had to do a lot of mental work to come and stand in front of you today. If years ago, somebody has told me I will be in education, I will tell the person, lie, 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 lie. Why? I hated school. And so for us today, if we say, all in for all children, what does that really mean? Does it mean that all in for children that learn fast, children that quote unquote you say they are good? What about the silenced ones? That was my story. I sat in classrooms, changed schools, either for the reason of being disruptive or unserious, they cannot contain me. And it was all about, she's lazy. She can never amount to anything. The school is not for her. And it went on and it went on. I couldn't read. Therefore, I performed poor in all my academics. And in those times, no one, none of my teachers, not even my parents, could pause for one day and say, what are you good at? What is really your potential? And so when I say, I'm not sure if I would stand in this room doing any work relating to education. That was so. I hated it. And I hated the people within education, but now I love them. At the age of 17, before I started picking words in books. So just imagine yourself sitting here, there, over there. Ask yourself, what would your life be if you were in my shoes? I was lost, I was broken, and the last straw that broke me was when I was almost turning 18. And for those of you from Ghana, you know, BEC, Basic Education Certificate Examination. That is what determines your ability to enter into high school. And guess what the school told my parents? We unfortunately cannot register her as part of our candidate because she's going to bring our scores down. And at that age, you should be finishing high school. So my parents just wanted me to finish. And so they asked, what is the solution? And the solution was take her to a nearby village, beg a public school around, and maybe they will register her. And that is how I managed to finish junior high school at the straw when I was turning 18. And guess what? What do you think the test scores were? I failed. And so no high school would accept me. And it was all about, we said it, you're lazy, you don't pay attention in school. But one young person who probably thought all in for all children said, no, I'm hearing all the news that is going on. Tell your parents to take you to a culinary school. And I was like, why do you say that to me? And he said, because you always mobilize us when you're in vacation, and you cook for us all. And we love your food, and I think that is your talent. Guess what? This guy is 18 years, and I was just behind him. So tell your parents to take you to a culinary school. And that is how I survived. The first day my dad took me to this school, he said to the proprietress, I brought my daughter here, but you know what? Please allow her to pass through your school. I have no expectation, but I also don't want her to get pregnant if she stays at home. And he left me. So already painted the picture of what kind of a child is coming into the school. But what he didn't know was that was the ground that will mold me to be the woman I am today. I thrived in that school. It became like a miracle. I excelled. My mind started opening up. My reading started picking up. And I was good at my culinary skills. And that led me to work in hospitality industry for years. Later, to cut a long story short, I sat for the mature student entrance exams. I didn't give up. I did my bachelor's degree in hospitality management. I did my master's degree in hospitality management. And I work around the world in hotels. But here is the story and why I am standing here today. At the master's level, a lecturer who was working with me on my project just paused one day and said, Rosa, are you dyslexic? And I was like, what a minute, what is that? And he said, I think you are dyslexic. So he handed me the International Dyslexia Association website and said, go check it out. That day, or that night, I didn't close the website. I was like, what the heck? Which website knows me so much? Who has told them about my story? And that came my understanding that some children learn differently. Some children, and many of them, the US says 1 in 5. The UK says 1 in 10. So let's just take it 1 in 10. How many percent of the population could likely be experiencing dyslexia, dysgraphia, ADHD, dyspraxia, etc.? But we are not helping them. We cannot achieve true inclusion if some students are muted, hiding at the back of their exercise book, afraid that a teacher is going to pick up on them. And so after learning all that, I came back home, because this was in Switzerland. I came back home researching, and thankfully to the work I do in hospitality, I travel a lot. So every African country I go, I ask, what is dyslexia? What is your knowledge? I go into schools, I go into ministries. I sampled a lot of inclusive education policies and programs that some of us we found here. But nothing was talking about those group of students. It was all about the physical challenges. And even when you are lucky and they have it in the policy, the implementation is lacking. So I decided to start the Africa Dyslexia Organization. Thank you. To create awareness, but not just awareness, also advocacy at the government level, working with ministries of education, and using my story so that we can achieve all in for all children. We train teachers, we mentor our students, we partner with different organizations so that this group of students will not be forgotten, because there is so many potentials within every child, within everybody. But if we are not talking about it, if you are not revisiting the table, there will be children left behind. And this theme for the annual forum will not be achieved. So I charge you here today, as you go back into your schools, in your workplaces, in your foundations, think about this subject. When you're coming up with programs, especially the funders, programs that you invest in, please think about students that you are not reaching because you are very focused on what you want. In that way, we cannot achieve this, and we cannot also achieve the SDG Goal 4. If you're already doing it, I applaud you. But if you're not doing it, please, I'm looking for you to partner with me. I've left my career for the past 5 years just to be here doing this way, because I believe in it, because I am also the same girl that could have probably knocked him by your car and say, could you please give me some coins, please? And how many of them are there? Many. But through those people are also potentials, people who could do well more than I am today. Thank you very much.
Lady Rosa inspires me all the time. I don't know why they put me after her. But my story is different. I'm the youngest of 3 daughters, and I grew up in privilege in Lagos, Nigeria. I went to the top private schools, traveled abroad for holidays, had all the best things life could offer, at least when compared to any average child in Lagos. And my mother was my world, a mother to 3 girls. She never wanted us to feel like because we were girls, we couldn't do anything. Like, the strangest thing you could say in my house was, it's a boy thing. We washed cars, changed tires, did everything that a boy would do, and she told us that you had all that you need to be whoever you wanted to be in the world. And so, on 21st July 1993, when she passed away suddenly, I was 10 years old. It completely broke me. Losing my mom was like the whole world had crumbled. And because I just saw her a day before, she went to church for a night vigil, and she told my sisters to sit down. She just wanted to rest her head, and she slept, and that was it. It was so sudden. And with that came the worst years of my life thereafter, because we lost everything after, because we were all young, and my dad wasn't present. And at age 13, I had to make the biggest decision of my life. I was at a crossroad because I had to leave the top private school I was in Lagos, and I had 2 options: a public school or a Catholic missionary school that had low fees. But then, the decision was so tough. I waited on it, and I lost the whole term. But then, a family friend, one night, we were having a conversation, and he said, I have never heard of a situation of grace to grass. I've only heard of grass to grace. Literally, that means I've never heard of privilege to poverty, but for your case, that's it. We've only heard of poverty to privilege. And so that helped me make that decision, because the missionary school I was supposed to go to was in another state. I felt so ashamed to be said that I lived in poverty. And I took that decision to go to Ibadan, another state. And I also took that decision because that was the school my mom went to. And I thought it would make me closer to her, but it actually made it worse. The school was being led by my mom's best friend, who was then the principal. And she showed me the journeys her and my mom made in school and where they sat, and it absolutely broke me. I almost committed suicide twice. And one of those times, she told me in my sleep, so I saw her often, and she told me, "You are not alone," because I always felt invincible. Fortunately, I'm also dyslexic, and I was one of those children that sat at the back of the class. And so you might not believe in people appearing in your dreams, but my mom was always by my side, and one thing she told me was to take education seriously. And I used to have that conversation, like, I repeated nursery 2, Mom. I can't read. I can't do anything. I'm just there. And she told me, give education a chance. Give life a chance. You can do it. And so I took her word seriously, and I decided to take school seriously. And I started using my pocket money to go to extra lessons to get myself to read, to understand, and to love what I was doing in school. Because then, in SS, senior secondary school, I was able to do business, which is what I love money. I don't know math. I don't know the concept of set theory, angle of elevation, and I don't get why we learn that. But when it comes to money, I bought this for this amount. This is my operational cost. This is the profit I can make from it. You'll find me there. And so I decided to go to commercial class where I thrived in accounting, commerce, economics, and I decided to give school a chance. And so because of this Catholic low-fee missionary school, I was able to complete my secondary education and graduated the best student in my school. And so this school with low fees was the reason I was able to finish secondary school, not only graduating the best in the school with the best results, but proceeding to university to graduate with a first-class degree in business, of course. And when I started working in KPMG, in business advisory, of course, I left KPMG because I wanted to do something different. I was tired of helping big companies become bigger. And so I decided to work with small companies, doing what KPMG was doing, but offering it to smaller businesses. And so while I was doing that, I still didn't feel fulfilled. So I decided my small firm needed to do something different, CSR, find something to do. And so I started looking at how we could train teachers. Education was, key in my life. And something happened in 2016. DFID, now FCDO, and where are the Oxford policy people that did research in Nigeria? They came to Nigeria to tell me that lived in Lagos, that grew up in Lagos, that there were schools that needed help. This research brought me to what we now call the affordable non-state sector, low-fee private schools, faith-based schools, alternative learning centers. And if you don't understand the context, we have just 1,700 public schools in Lagos and over 20,000 of these kind of schools serving about 70% of the poor. And they took me to the schools in my backyard showed me children that needed our help, showed me these children that our national systems are not capturing. No one cares about them. Besides, they are private schools. Why should we help private schools? They are making money. And so the project then called Deepen took 120 of us consultants, because their model was making markets work for the poor. They were not going to intervene themselves. And they showed us this research and told us to act on it. And so that was how I designed SEED. And SEED is Sustainable Education and Enterprise Development. We wanted to help these schools to become better. First, understand their schools as a business and access financing, but later I quickly found out that that was not enough. These schools didn't even understand what quality meant. You told them quality and they said, oh, those big schools that have big school buses, AC in their classroom, they are approved. Is that what you're talking about? They didn't understand anything because they were all left behind. And so we went on the journey to start looking at what quality really meant for them. And we supported them to improve quality. But then that wasn't enough. The financial institutions didn't even understand them. They couldn't lend to them. In Lagos, you can't even open a bank account. It's easier for a yam seller to get access to finance through microfinance than a school owner. Even a school owner that owned both businesses would get funding for her yam business than her school. And so we started working with financial institutions as well to design products to serve these schools. But then we hit a brick wall. It was a catch-22. We can't fund them because they are not approved. They are not approved because they need money, and they can get access to the money. And we said we needed to do policy work. We needed to change the landscape. Because something that is more critical is that Nigeria is known for the number of out-of-school children. We're like 1 or 2 in the world with 20 million. But I stand here to say that that data is wrong. Our children are in low-fee private schools that our national systems are not capturing. Imagine 20,000 schools in Lagos. Our state education management information system doesn't have their data. They are left behind. I think the biggest crisis we have is not the number of out-of-school children or even the children in school that are not learning. It's the children that are invincible to us because we do not care about that sector. Funders do not want to hear about it. Foundations do not want to hear about it. I have been in Lagos since 2016, and we have tried to partner with so many organizations. And they say they are private schools. They don't need our help. But they have millions of children that are passing through the system every day, not getting quality education, not getting funding, and not being supported. If we don't count them, then they don't count. These children are there, and let me give you an example, 3 examples of what happens to these children. They go to a low-fee private school, they hustle for 12 years, and they are not recognized. They get a scholarship to go abroad, and the school in the UK or in the US writes our Ministry of Education, and guess what they say? Their school does not exist, and they lose that scholarship. Another situation, a child that goes to a low-fee private school is about to get a job, and the HR department does a due diligence on his or her certificate. They go to the Ministry of Education, and they respond, this school does not exist. A child that wants to become a governor or president, and they do a due diligence on that certificate, you would hear that he forged his certificate. The school does not exist because every single affordable non-state school in Nigeria is, by default, not counted because they're not approved. And so our children are invincible in our system. And I know that it's not just Nigeria. We were in Kibera yesterday, and I kept asking every time, what are we doing to support those schools in those little communities led by our teachers who have retired or led by people that have seen the sheer number of out-of-school children and decide to start something, led by people that are offering remedial education for these children. What is the definition of a school, really? If we're not clear about what the definition of a school is, then we can't really help our children. There's a difference between the school not being approved, or is it a place where children are learning? And data has shown that even children in these schools are learning better than some of our public schools. And so how do we support these children? How do we ensure that they continue to be proud to be citizens of their country and that they're counted and they amount to something? And so that's why I remember the school I went to, because that was the low-fee option that I could choose if I decided I didn't want to go to a public school. And so that is why my story is the reason I continue to work in this space. And I decided that I would brave up and rise up and work in policy and demand for systems change. Because working with the schools alone and the communities alone isn't going to make the difference. I need to make a difference across the country. And so, even though we've won at national level for a non-state policy in Nigeria to recognize this kind of schools, Nigeria is a huge country. Education is at the state level. We're now looking at ensuring that every single state in Nigeria recognizes these schools, counts these children, supports them, because these schools charge as little as 2 to 5 cents a day. And they cannot afford to pay teachers, they cannot get good learning materials, and they cannot provide the kind of quality education that these children need. And so with the new policy, we're hoping that we're able to open up this sector and ensure that every single child gets counted. And finally, I want to draw us to a place called Makoko, the largest floating slum on our continent. This slum is home to almost 1 million people living on stilts, on water. We have personally counted about 20 schools in that community and housing many children. But guess what? Those children are not counted. That slum community, though illegal, an illegal settlement since the 19th century, is about to be demolished. But no one cares about where the children are going to go to, because they're not even in our database. And so I would like to charge us and call on us, funders, school owners. I'm sure many of us even run low-cost schools as chains, but the affordable non-state sector needs our support. You might not be working in Nigeria, but we are very excited about GSF and the community, because if you do it in the country you're in, we can reference your work and our Nigerian government will believe in it and say, oh, they're doing it in India, they're doing it in Pakistan. We need to stand up for these kind of schools because the children in there are counting on us. Thank you very much.
About the national exams. You said these children are not recognized, the schools are not approved, but what exams do they do as they exit to the next level? And doesn't the government recognize those exams?
I would like to know more from Rosalin on the inclusive education. How do you work with available networks that are dealing with children with disabilities? But also, maybe I would like also to know the areas that you are working currently, and to see how we can extend coverage to ensure we extend the inclusivity of education to children, because we have a lot that are suffering that way, and we have not yet tapped that challenge yet. Thank you.
Across the countries, students are not learning. So if we come in and try to think about some of these students that are not learning and the issues they might have, right, including dyslexia, my concern is really how you do not take the blame and put it on students, but be able to navigate what the teachers can do better, as well as knowing the issues that the student might have that should be addressed. How do you work that balance so that you don't let go of teachers and now say all the students who are not learning have issues, and it's not about the system, it's about the student. Thank you.
You've recently taken over TCF as the new CEO and president of an organization that's running 2,000 plus schools across Pakistan, so massive scale. I'm just really curious about your journey and what has changed in your role as you've moved from being vice president, where you were dealing a lot with external engagement and fundraising.
Now, I want to share a personal story of one of the schools that we work with. This school is 35 years old. And for 35 years, they've been taking their children to an approved school just because they were afraid to approach government for approval because of the way they looked as a school. Now, the other school owner also used to stop this school owner from going to government because this school's children was the reason his school was doing well in the national exams. And so this school was great at training the children. His own school wasn't doing well, but their own result is the reason that school was a top school for years. And so they deprived this school the information to go to government to get approved as a school. And so that's why at SEED, we're opening up that space. We're currently the secretariat to the Coalition of Low-Fee Private School Associations in Lagos with over 7,000 schools. We're currently going from local government to local government, all 20 local governments of Lagos State, sensitizing all the schools. You need to register. No matter what you look like, you need to register because your children are learning. You're doing an amazing job. Don't let the way you look stop you. And we've also gone to the government side to say, we need to find a way to recognize these schools. And so with Lagos State, January this year, we were able to define with government a registration process and grading, grade A to D, where these schools can fall while we work with them to be able to achieve approval, so that every single one of them can then get that opportunity to get approved. I don't know why a 35-year-old school who has a student that passed through that school that works with government in the ministry is still afraid to get approved. That's how they write national exams. Thank you.
Thanks, Lanre. Rosalin.
All right, thank you. The first question there was how we can achieve inclusion and the scale at which we work. So currently, one of our programs, first, when we are not aware about something, we really cannot make change, right? And our focus, we focus on Africa. And you already know when it comes to disability, things relating to a child not being able to learn properly and score, because to our parents, you are somebody and have potential when the test score, you're passing, and you are the first, second, third, or the first 10 in your class, right? So the first thing we do is awareness, and awareness change a lot of things. I always tell the teachers we train that the head of schools we train that if you know from today and you don't change your ways, then I have a problem with you. And the reason why I say that I don't like school, but today I like all of you, is because now I'm giving you the awareness of it. As to what you do with it from here, it's your case, right, to answer. So we work in a way of awareness where we have Africa Dyslexia Advocates Fellowship Program. Currently, we have our 2 cohorts. There are 333 of them across 38 African countries. And what they do is they do grassroots advocacy by going to schools, ministries of education, and knocking on doors. That's, hey, we are bringing you this message. Through that, we get schools that are interested to train their teachers so that they can be able to support our learners. And I mean all learners, because the approach of teaching a child with a learning difference is not different from teaching a child who gets it like fast. It works for all. So we train the teachers to be able to support all learners. So in a way that we can work together is one of them through the advocacy fellowship. 2, we help also to put in place inclusive education policies that is holistic, not just looking at one angle. So we help schools to do that. And so if schools are here and they are interested, if you have it already, we can help you to review it and see the gaps and make recommendations. And some of the recommendations will be resources that you need to get, will be teacher training, will be even teaching your entire school or training your entire school to understand this. Now, my brother in South Sudan, I'm not saying that every child currently in a classroom that is not performing may have dyslexia or dyscalculia. But can we find a way to train our teachers in knowing how to teach in a multi-sensory approach that supports all learners? And that's why I wasn't thriving, because I am a kinesthetic and a visual learner. But the schools that I was going was more what? Reading and writing schools. And that is why I was termed as a lazy student. But when that changed, I picked up. I was actually the best master's student in my master's class, even though I have a learning challenge. And so it's all about how we train the teachers, because the children cannot support themselves alone. It's the teacher that needs to be trained in a way that can support all learners. I hope that addresses your concern. Thank you.
Rosalin, thank you. Zia.
Thanks for that, Ashti. Mel and Jenny and I were just talking during the coffee break about the joys of being CEO in one of these outfits. I used to see I think a couple of meetings ago, Ashti had a session with institutional CEOs and what it meant to be a CEO personally. And I thought, such first world problems, people being precious. But I can tell you, I have to have this morning routine where I tell myself it's not 24,000 staff, it's not 1,000 locations, it's not so many kids. You have to talk yourself down into immediate fires to fight. George also asked me a beautiful, precious question. When do you get time to reflect? And I'm like, not yet, George. I do want to talk about 2 things. One is, I think some of us may find us already in that position where your model is successful. And I don't know what success means when the crisis is still there, you're still charging at that windmill, but you have a model, you have scale to some degree. It is quite a debilitating challenge to have a cookie cutter, and we'll talk about it later in the day as well, that works and has worked. Because a cookie cutter which doesn't evolve is actually a bigger challenge. Whatever got you here is not going to get you wherever you want to go. But you have to convince donors, boards, staff, yourself, that the change is worth it. The challenge to an accepted way of working is worth it. And it is, I can tell you, I call the program design team sometimes the education establishment in the organization because, sometimes when you've done something and you can show that it has worked, trying new things is hard. So I think as you scale, that is one of the emerging challenges. I can tell you the second challenge that I am very focused on and alive to is there is a room of elders, you stand on the shoulders of giants, and there's a room of elders who get you where you are. That is a series of accidents and a series of active work efforts that got those people in those rooms and thinking in a certain way. These institutions are worth nurturing, and these platforms are actually going to create impact over generations. So while we worry about the what and the outcomes today, a very large part of my worry is who's going to be in that room 10 years from now? Are those people inside the organization, inside our movement? Are we thinking about culture in a way which is beyond us as individuals and beyond immediate outcomes? So I think definitely a note to all of you is do spend time on strengthening the institution, the governance, not just the funding for today, but really funding the robust processes and capabilities in the organization which survive you. because people will thank you for it later on, like I am thanking my predecessors.
Zia, thank you.